Welcome everybody to the Giver Method channel. My name is Jake and I'm so glad that you're able to join me. Now today we're going to be talking about how you can break past like those fears that have been holding you back and holding you back from making the impact that you were born to make. I want to cover how we can help you to get into your flow, your right flow state, and that way you can move forward even if maybe you're feeling a little bit scared at times. So let me just frame up the conversation a little bit for you by covering a few things. Like, I don't know if you've ever felt that feeling. I know I've been there before, like that feeling when you've got something really important to do, something that could actually move your life forward, and you don't do it, right? Like you'll sit there and you'll be scrolling instead of starting anything. You're going to tell yourself maybe like, I don't know, I told myself in those situations like I was being lazy. Maybe you thought like you need to get your act together, or that you just need a little bit more motivation. But what if I told you that like what you're maybe calling something like laziness or whatever is actually fear just wearing a disguise? And here's what most people don't even realize. Like when you're stuck in patterns that feel really safe but maybe unsatisfied, when you know exactly like what you need to do but can't seem to take action, when you keep waiting for the motivation that never actually comes, like it's not a character flaw in any sort of means, like it's just your brain's protective system like working on overdrive, like basically like mistaking growth opportunities as threats, and so it's trying to protect you. I don't know, maybe you're a parent who's juggling endless responsibilities while your dreams start to pile up dust, or you're the entrepreneur with a really big idea but you find yourself procrastinating the work that matters most. Or maybe you're just maybe you're an employee who's plugging away and you know that you could be offering more but you keep playing it really safe. Now if any of those resonate with you, or something along those lines maybe feels a bit like you, like then this message is for you. The patterns that maybe you think of as laziness, or people look at as like a lack of motivation, they're actually your nervous system's way of like keeping you safe from maybe the perceived threats that are out there. But here's the thing, like your brain can't tell the difference between those physical dangers and the emotional risk of putting yourself out there, failing or succeeding, and how to handle more responsibility. And so I want to open those up a little bit more for you and make sure that we're really clear on how that's impacting you and how we can move past it. Now, my name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder. I'm the author of this book called The Giver Method. It came out in November. Since coming out, it has sold thousands of copies. It's an Amazon bestseller, has tons of 5-star reviews. Now, I put it out there, and I put a link in the description where you can go get yourself a copy. It's the best $10 you can invest in yourself. And I put it out there because I want people to be able to get their hands on this. There's tons of worksheets, exercises, things like that help you to unlock your gifts and superpowers, make more impact, create more value for the people in your life, and that way you can have better relationships, live a more fulfilled and joyous, happy life as a part of that, have better connections, all sorts of things along those lines. Everything we cover today is going to be grounded in this, but I recommend you get the book because it's going to break things down so much more in depth for you and really give you a plan and a method that you can put into place as every part of your life. Now, I ground a lot of what we talk about in the book in my own story and things about myself. That way, it's a little bit more real because I've been there. I am a parent. I am an entrepreneur. I've been the employee working in a corporate job 9 to 5. Like I've been all of those things. So I understand where you're coming from and how you think in a lot of ways. And so I like to make sure that we ground it in my experience so you can see how that ties to you. Now, gosh, I'll never forget when this type of thing hit me. Like I had a time where I'd spend months avoiding this project that I knew could really transform what I was working on at that time. I kept telling myself that I was being lazy and that, I'll do it when I have more energy, right? When I have more time. But the truth is, I was actually terrified what that success could mean to, my family life or my responsibilities, the changes that it could bring. The moment that I realized that fear was driving my inaction, things shifted for me. I stopped fighting against myself. I just started working with the fear instead of against it. And that's exactly what I want to talk to you about today, how you recognize when the fear is masquerading as laziness and how to transform that nervous energy into really forward momentum, how you create the conditions where courageous actions feel so much more natural than staying stuck where you are. Because guess what? When your brain's alarm system starts detecting uncertainty, it triggers that freeze response, right? And you feel like you're stuck in quicksand. And you should move with every fiber of your being, but you stay put. And the more you judge yourself for not taking action on that, the more fear builds up around it, the very things that could start to change in your life. Now, here's what's really exciting is once you understand this, once you learn to recognize the fear, what it is, and develop skills to move through it, you're going to unlock something so incredible. like this flow state that actually feels effortless when you're energized and by the challenges ahead, not paralyzed by it. And there's tons of data out there that I like to quote in the book, and studies I like to quote when I'm doing these videos. And so there's different studies out there that show that people who learn to identify fear as a root of their procrastination are 70% more likely to break through the inaction than those who solely just look on general motivation techniques. And the transformation isn't just about getting things done, it's about stepping into who you're meant to be. So I want to cover these 7 really practical strategies, things that you can do. They're designed specifically for busy parents and overwhelmed entrepreneurs and dedicated employees, and they're designed to transform that fear-based inertia into forward momentum. Like I said, it's all grounded in the GIVER method, so you can go down in the description, get it off Amazon. You can go to Amazon, you can go directly there, look up the GIVER method by Jake Talbert, and helping you, that way it helps you to express what those fears are, work through them, and use your gifts to move past them. So feel free to check it out. You can also go to thegivermethod.com, check out our other resources, other ways we help people, or find us on all of the places we are on social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, like I said, or givermethod.com for all of that type of stuff. Now, if you're like, yeah, Jake, I love it, and I'm going to get the book, but I want to move faster. I need some personal support. I need some kind of one-on-one hand-holding. Great. I did open up a couple of one-on-one coaching spots recently. So if having someone, or if you know someone that having somebody in their corner sounds like what's needed right now, then there's going to be a link in the description where you can check out the coaching. Now, if you lead a team or you run a podcast or host an event, mastermind, whatever, have a space for people gathering, you think this type of message, or something like what we cover would serve them, then I'd love a chance to bring this work to your audience with really practical and actionable steps that they could do. So there's a link down below for that as well. And of course, like the video, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any of the future content. I create videos every single day. Would hate for you to miss out on any of the great things that there are about unlocking your gifts and superpowers. And of course, leave your comments along the way during the video, because I love to come back and respond to those. So let's see. I think we've covered everything. So for now, let's just let's dive in and let's talk about how you can stop letting the fear make the decisions for you. Start using that information to guide you to what truly matters the most to you. So the first strategy I want you to focus on is this fear detection move, fear investigation process. It's about distinguishing protective patterns versus genuine rest, okay? There's this real story behind that lack of motivation. That's what we're trying to find, because when we kick this thing off, we're going to look at this thing that it flips the way that you see yourself. Those days when you've just labeled it as it's laziness, it's unmotivation, whatever. The truth most of the time is that's not the real story. We've talked about that. What's happening is your brain's running its secret protective programming that it has. Every time you avoid that small email, you avoid that hard conversation or starting that project you've been thinking about for months, it's not because you're weak. It's your nervous system stepping in and going, whoa, that feels a bit risky, right? Now, maybe you're afraid of failing or getting judged or even succeeding or having to live up to these new expectations. Your brain treats those emotional threats the same way it would a tiger in the wild. It wants to keep you safe. So it throws a wall of avoidance up to protect you. So let's break down that wall. Let's start to move things forward. So here's how you can actually start to do this. The next time you catch yourself stalling, pause and ask yourself, well, what am I really afraid of happening if I do this? And write it down. Even if it sounds silly, it might be I'm afraid to look stupid, or I'm afraid that I'll succeed and I won't know what to do next. I'm afraid that I'll start to do it and it'll be embarrassing to me. I'm afraid of what, that it could impact my job. Whatever it is, just write it out. And then what I want you to do is I want you to dig a little deeper. Well, what's the worst thing that could actually happen here? And how would I handle that? 9 times out of 10, you realizing even the worst outcome isn't this catastrophic thing. You're as it's not as big as your brain wants you to believe. It changes things for you. And then of course you can do this quick gut check trick if you needed to as well, where you think about taking just one small step forward in the thing that you've been avoiding, and just notice how your body feels. Do you feel a little spark under that fear? A mix of maybe nervous energy and excitement, whatever. That's usually a sign that it's something meaningful. But if you feel completely drained just thinking about it, you might actually need to rest and maybe not push too hard. Just because when you start seeing fear in this sort of a way, your brain it's your brain trying to protect you, and you can work with it instead of beating yourself up over it. You're not thinking or saying hey, I'm lazy. You start saying okay, well, I'm protecting myself right now, but from what? And what can I do about that? And that tiny shift starts to change things for you. here's the really wild part. Like, that fear that you feel usually means you're standing in like the doorway of something important, about to do something big. So it's time to start stepping through that. And that leads us into the second strategy that, you know, we want to cover. It's this courage ladder, how you, like, the courage building progression process. Like, think about it this way, like, you're creating that pathway that honors your nervous system and your like need for safety, you know, bravery, one step at a time, sort of an idea, right? So, because if we're real with each other, like, you can't go from feeling stuck on a couch, you know, to launching your big dream overnight. It just doesn't happen that way. Your nervous system doesn't like work in that sort of a way. It needs proof that moving forward is safe before it feels ready to step into bigger and more bold moves. That's why this classic, like, the just do it advice often leaves us feeling like we've failed, you know, when we freeze up. You know, I like to think of it like you're building this, that, like I said, a courage ladder. You know, you wouldn't just deadlift 300 pounds your first day at the gym. You know, you'd start somewhat lighter and you'd build yourself up over time. Like, so the same thing applies here. And so I want you to think about it that way. Each small act of courage is like adding a little bit more weight to the bar. Every rung of the ladder is a gentle stretch outside your comfort zone that trains your brain to see uncertainty as something that you can handle, not something to avoid. You know, when you take even tiny brave steps, you start stacking the evidence, you know, that you can do these scary things and survive. And over time, it piles up as proof, that the proof that your brain needs and that it wants, so that you can, you know, no longer be stuck on the sidelines. So here's how you actually go about doing this. Like, the first thing is, like, name the big thing that you've been avoiding. You know, the conversation, the business idea, the fitness goal, whatever. Like, it could be anything. I'm pretty sure that you know which one it is. And instead of throwing yourself into it like with full force and freaking yourself out, maybe break it down into 7 to 10 smaller steps. And for each one, like, just a little bit, you know, stretchier than the last one. You know, for example, like, if you want to start a business, maybe you just start by researching someone else who did. And then step 2 would be chatting with a friend about the idea. And then step 3 would be sketching a rough plan. Like, I think you get the idea. Like, you just pick whatever it is, and then you're going to pick one of those steps each week, just one. And when you take a pause and you celebrate, you say, like, hey, I did it and I'm okay. I made it past the first step. Like, you start to build up this, like, this list of things that you can turn to. You start a courage list on your phone or in a journal, like, where you jot down every brave move you made, no matter how small. And you know, that voice in your head that tells you, like, you're always stuck, you know, or you never finish things, like, you'll have recipes to prove it otherwise, right? Now, this matters because, like, the ladder is real. It creates lasting courage built like a muscle, you know, rep by rep. And when you give your nervous system the chance to feel safe, you know, while still nudging forward, you create, like, changes that actually last. Even small steps makes the next one that much easier, until, like, moving forward feels so natural, like way more natural than hiding. And eventually taking action despite your fear, like, you stop letting that be the force and you start letting it become who you are. And then that leads us to the third one, which is, like, this idea of fear as, like, how you turn that into fuel, right? How you reframe the nervous energy as information and an invitation. You know, that nerves, it's my green light. It's time to go. It's not a stop sign. So many of us think that we need to get rid of fear before we can move forward. We wait around for that magical day, you know, when we feel ready. Well, I have a massive spoiler alert for you, because I've worked with lots of people in a lot of different areas. I've worked with very successful people that are some of the most confident people you can think of, that have it all together, that you would think they have it all together. Weird, this day never comes where the fear goes away. Fear, imposter syndrome, those things that are in our head, those stories we tell ourselves, they are always going to be there. So as you unlock new parts of you and you show up in new ways in your life, it's still going to be there. So we have to be able to use it as fuel and find our ways to navigate through it. You know, that's going to be the biggest thing. Like, that was what was a big game changer for me, you know, and for so many people. Like, when you realize the fear isn't a barrier, it's actually a signpost. Like, instead of thinking, like, I'm scared, like, I should avoid this or whatever, like, you start telling yourself, like, yeah, I'm scared. So this, like, guess what? It probably matters to me. It's probably really important. You know, it's probably something that I really do need to do to make a greater impact. Man, that reframe shifts you from stuck into being more in motion. So if you think it like this, like that, like, not in your stomach, the thing that's kind of holding you back, it's not there to hold you back. You know, it's your system gearing up for something meaningful, and it's excited about it. Like, you know, it's like turbulence on a plane, but you feel it because you're moving forward, not because you're falling. And so here's what I want you to do. A couple of things that you can try that really help with this. Like the first thing is this fear translation method is what I call it. Well, like when your fear pops up, pause and ask yourself, like, what is it telling me about what I care about? You know, maybe you're scared to launch the business because deep down, like, impact and independence matter to you. Maybe you're scared to share your writing because, you know, your authentic expression is a core part of who you are, and you're worried about how that shows up to other people. Just name it, whatever it is. And then there's this energy like redirect trick that you can do. When you feel your heart race or your hands get clammy, don't tell yourself to calm down. Instead, like, just say like, hey, this is my body revving me up for something so much bigger. And then you can use that energy immediately, like just with one small step. You know, send that email, write that first line, speak up in the meeting, whatever it is. And then the last thing you can do is you try this daily fear check-in, where each morning you ask yourself, like, well, what's one thing I might be avoiding today because it feels a little scary? Not because I'm actually like tired or busy, like whatever it is, like just commit to one small move in that direction. The tiniest action will break that fear cycle for you. You know, this is a big game changer for people because it transforms fear from being like the jailer that's holding you in to the guide that's taking you on your path. You stop letting fear, you know, tell you to shrink down and let it say, hey, now's the time to show up and grow. You know, you start seeing those nerves. They're not as a bad sign. They're starting to use them as like the rocket fuel to get me to where I'm going. Because then you become unstoppable by not waiting for, you know, fear to go away to be fearless, but by learning to just act and like act alongside the fear and push through it, like toward the life that you're meant to build. Then, you know, we'll move on to our fourth one, our fourth strategy, which is this like this whole concept of low stakes courage experiments. You know, think of it like it's safe to fail experiments, right? You know, ways that I can test my courage in real life without feeling like I'm going to be crashing and burning in every sort of way. You know, one of the biggest reasons that we stay stuck is because we think like we have to like guarantee success before we can take the first step. And we tell ourselves like, if I'm not 100% sure that this is going to work, I better not even try. Gosh, we think that type of stuff to ourselves all the time. Guess what? Like that means we end up doing nothing at all. But, you know, the real breakthrough is that you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have the perfect conditions or the crystal ball or whatever it is. Like, you just need to do these low stakes, like courage experiments. You know, things like, you know, dipping your toe in the water before you do a cannonball. You know, you just create small, safe steps where, you know, it's nothing huge to lose, but everything to learn as a part of it. And when you set up these 10 experiments, like the pressure drops. You know, you're not betting the farm. You're just simply giving yourself a chance to practice courage, to learn, to grow without the fear of messing up looming back there in the back of your head. And more often than not, these experiments work out way better than we expected. And they build the proof that you can handle uncertainty and keep moving forward. And so here's how you can actually do this. I've got a couple of ways, a couple of things that you can put into motion. You can start by, you know, picking something that you've been avoiding because it feels maybe risky or too big. And then, like, once again, what's the tiniest version of this thing that feels doable? You know, like, silly how tiny it is. You know, if you want to speak up at work more, like, start by just making a small comment or asking a question. You know, if you want to start sharing your art, maybe show just one friend instead of, like, going and posting it online to the world, right? Like, switch from judging your experiments, like, by success or failure, and just focus on, like, what do I learn from this? You know, write down those lessons no matter what happened. And then, you know, that way there's no time, you know, there's no wasted effort or time as a part of that. Every step forward becomes valuable insight. And then you just have to go and review that feedback and review that data every so often and look for the patterns that are there. And then, of course, don't forget to set up like your actual safety net. You know, you tell a friend, you tell a mentor, like, hey, here's what I'm doing. You know, and that way they can cheer you on. They can celebrate the fact, you know, when you show up the way that you want to, regardless of what the result is. Create tiny rewards for yourself for trying, like, you know, treating yourself to your favorite coffee, you know, or after you do a thing, you know, or whatever. Like, just your brain starts to see these actions as exciting things rather than terrifying. You know, low-stake experiments help you prove to yourself that you're taking action, you know, and that it doesn't equal danger in any sort of a way. Like, they teach your nervous system that it can handle the unknown and that progress doesn't require perfection. And over time, small wins, they build this amazing foundation for yourself. And you realize you're way more capable and way more resilient than maybe you've given yourself credit for a long time. And those feelings, like that thing, like, it sets you up, gosh, for something bigger and braver and bolder in every area of your life. You can show up more authentically you and just be more fulfilled. Now, we're a little more than halfway through. We have 3 more left. So I'd love to know if there's been any takeaways, any ahas, any moments of clarity. If so, leave them in the comments. If you need to pause the video and go to Amazon and get yourself a copy of the GIVER method, now would be a good time to do that. Come back and finish these last 3 because they're going to be huge and change things for you, okay? So let's dive into the 5th one, okay? The 5th one is like this the action identity shift, right? Identity evidence builder. You know, becoming someone who takes action despite the uncertainty. You know, even when it's scary, right? You know, because this unlocks amazing things. I mean, I found that it unlocks so many things for you. You don't have to wait to feel brave before you act. When you act, that's what makes you brave. You know, most of us, like, we think that the lightning bolt is, you know, of courage that needs to come and hit us and give us this spark, you know, before we can finally move forward. But the truth is that bolt will never come. You create it. You create it by moving forward. You know, it's not about faking or pretending any sort of fearlessness, because guess what? Stepping out there is still going to cause you some fear, some anxiety, some stress. It's okay. You know, it's about starting to collect real evidence that you're someone who's taking some action, even if you're sweating or second guessing or if it feels risky. You know, even small moves despite the fear is the recipe that says, like, hey, look, I can do hard things. You're telling yourself that. And the more of those that, like, the more things that you collect, you know, the more receipts you have in your pocket of these things, like the more brave, like the more of a brave identity locks in of who you really are. And we start seeing yourself as someone who leans into challenges, right? Who doesn't hide from excuses, you know, who goes into things messy. Like, you stop needing to convince yourself to be brave because it becomes part of your default. You know, so here's how you can actually start to do this, right? Like I said, I love giving you guys tons of takeaways and exercises you can do. Start by you know, changing your self-talk. Instead of saying, like, I wish I were more confident, just flip it and say, like, hey, I'm someone who takes action even if I feel unsure. It's a tiny shift, but it plants the right seeds for you. And then, you know, you can keep some sort of a log, the action evidence log, a journal, whatever, where every time you do something brave, big or tiny, write it down. You know, you did finally send that email, you hit send on it, great. Write it down. You share that idea in a meeting, great. Write it down. Like, this log becomes the living proof your brain needs that you're someone who doesn't stay stuck. You know, and then you can try this thing like this, like future me move sort of an idea, where, like, if you're hesitating in something, ask yourself, like, what would the future version of me, the bold, the courageous me, do right now in this moment? And then just go do that thing. Don't overthink it. It might feel awkward at first, but that's exactly how you start closing the gap between who you are today and who you can become. You know, when you build your identity from action, you stop relying on hype or waiting for this magical motivation day to show up. You start trusting yourself. You build that track record of bravery, and that changes everything, because instead of being someone who overthinks the moves, you know, you become the person who just acts. That's the biggest thing. Just take action. Just start. Count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. I love the Mel Robbins thing with that. Like, go and just do that sort of a thing. Now, the 6th one, the 6th strategy that I like to tell people about is this idea of, like, the easy to move method, right? It's this momentum creation, like, system that you have. How you move forward, like, create forward movement, you know, and how you see that as it's easier than staying stuck. You know, how you create the obvious steps, I guess. You know, because if we're real for a second, like, we all love the path of least resistance, right? You know, it's just how we're wired. So instead of trying to fight, like, you know, for something, like, you know, what if we just move forward with, like, the easy choice? Like, this is a big game changer, because instead of forcing yourself to be, like, motivated, like, you just design your life in a way that taking these brave actions feel like a natural part of your next step of who you are. You know, most people think that they've got, like, to power through or wait for that magical burst of energy, but the truth is, willpower, like, is like a phone battery. It drains fast. You know, but smart design, like, when we put that in place, it's unlimited. When you shape your environment and your routines to support you, you don't have to have the hype man there. You know, you don't have to build yourself up every single time. You start creating, like, the slide instead of the mountain. You know, we start moving forward no matter what. Now, you know, the big mistake is trying to act differently without changing, like, the setup around you. It's like trying to eat healthy with a box of donuts, like, sitting there on the counter. You know, if you want to take brave action, like, make it easy, you know, and avoidance, make that a little bit harder, like, then just, you know, set yourself up to win even when you're tired or on messy days. So here's what you want to do. Okay, first thing, set the stage. Okay, Clear your environment of distractions or lay out the clues of what you want to do. If you want to write more, like open the doc and leave it ready before, the night before, so it's ready to go. That's part of what you want to have that tough talk, like schedule it on your calendar when your energy is at its highest, not when you're drained at 8 p.m. Like just set yourself up for success there. And then next is this idea of action pairing, where you attach the thing that you're avoiding to something you already do. Like after your morning coffee break, boom, I'm going to write that message. After lunch, like I'm going to knock out the 20-minute bit of that project I've been avoiding. Like this way you don't have to think. It just flows through your natural rhythm. And then finally, like think of your hype buttons, right? Pick the song that fires you up. A phrase that you say to yourself, like, just, hey, let go. Hey, I got this. Whatever it is, maybe there's a quick movement, maybe stand tall, maybe you need to shake out your hands, maybe you need to get some movement going, whatever it is, like small triggers to help you switch gears from frozen to moving forward. Because this approach, like it works so much. It works with you and what you're already doing, not against you. Because just action becomes easier, because it's a choice. Realizing it, and these small little they give you energy for the next one, and before you know it, you're moving forward. Isn't like this heroic, crazy big effort. It's just who you are. And then that takes us to the seventh final strategy I want to cover, this flow state, like game plan, creation, cultivation, whatever. Like how you create the conditions where action feels natural and energizing, making courage just feel a part of you, authentic, natural, and even fun. Like this is one of my favorite shifts to have people go through. Like it's turning the brave action into something that, that drains you, and takes away from you, to something that lights you up. This is where the whole idea of like the flow state comes in. Like flow isn't something like, it's not some magical zone of reserve. It's not some woo-woo idea, reserved for pro athletes or meditating monks or, whatever the thing may be, right? It's not meant for that. It's your sweet spot where your skills, your values, and the challenge all line up, and you feel like you just like you're in your element, right? And the truth is, like, fear shows up the loudest right before you do something that really matters to you. That thing you're avoiding is probably pointing you straight towards your biggest growth and impact that's waiting for you. And when you see the fear as a guide instead of the enemy, everything will change. It isn't about making life easier, avoiding the hard stuff. Like flow is actually like, I'm a good challenge. I'm going to go and attack it. It's about making sure that the challenge matches your natural energy that you're built to do, and align your effort and your gifts with that. That effort starts to give you energy back instead of draining you. So here's a couple things to give a try as a part of this. Like the first thing would be like, look for your energy multipliers, right? Like there's those activities that make you feel alive even when they're tough. Maybe it's problem solving, maybe it's helping someone see possibility, maybe it's creating something from scratch, like, or connecting with people. Just whatever it is, notice when fear shows up around these. That's your clue that you're on the right track. And then, look for what are your, set up your flow triggers, right? Design your approach to match, your strengths. If you thrive on connection, bring in others. If you're a systems thinker, organize big, scary goal into something smaller, just clear steps. Let your natural gifts build momentum. Pay attention to the times of day where you've got more energy. If you're an early morning person, maybe that's the time to be doing some stuff. If you're not, maybe you don't try to do stuff in the morning, right? And of course, don't skip your purpose anchoring, where before you jump into something that feels scary, take a second to remember why it matters. Who is it helping? How does it improve who you are or those around you? How does it move you forward to the person that you want to be? Because that deeper why can really flip and fuel things for you really quickly. Because when you start using your gifts and rooting them in action and purpose, courage doesn't feel like a battle. It just feels like this natural extension of who you are. You actually crave that forward momentum at a certain point. And that's how you build that life where, brave action feels good and you stay in motion, not because you have to, but because you actually want to. Now, with all that, I want to leave you with this sort of idea. Once again, the fear that you keep wrestling with, it's not your enemy. It's actually just, you've been trying to protect you for a while. It's even holding you back from your progress, but that laziness that you're beating yourself up about, most of the time is just fear in disguise, wearing some comfy hoodie, convincing you to stay on the sidelines. But what I've learned, not just from my own journey, but from helping hundreds of other people, is real safety doesn't come from avoiding what scares us. It comes from proving to ourselves over and over again that we can handle whatever comes up and just take the next step, right? Something wild starts to happen. That nervous energy that used to frees you up and such. Like, it becomes this fuel, you know, and you stop waiting for this magical motivation to show up, and you just start moving, messy, imperfect, but just moving. Like, those are very things that can terrify you. They actually become the things that light you up the most. And the 7 things we talked about today, like, they aren't just tips or woo-woo ideas. Like, they are a new way to look at your life. You don't have to kill your fear, because fear doesn't go away, but you have to kill it to move forward. You don't have to wait till you feel ready. Feeling afraid usually means you're standing right on the edge of something that really matters to you, and you're ready to make this bigger impact. Your gifts and superpowers, the real things, that are there under all that noise, like, they're not waiting for you to become fearless. They're just waiting for you to realize that you already have what it takes to move, even if you are scared. The person that you're meant to become, like, they're not on the other side of some mythical confidence mountain or where you go find yourself. They're right on the other side of just the first small shaky step that you've been putting off. Because the truth is, like, you'll probably never feel completely ready for any of the things that matter the most to you. You just have to start exactly where you are, exactly with what you have. And when you do, you treat fear like this friend that's pointing you towards what matters most. Like, when you stack the small wins and make brave actions easier, like, that's when you realize, like, the life you've been waiting for has actually been waiting for you. Like, just stop waiting and start moving forward. It's right there in front of you. Now, if you want to take this deeper, if you want to dive deeper into it, then once again, that's where I would say go to Amazon, get yourself a copy of the GIVER method, and dive into all the principles beyond just this that it has to help you with all of these sort of things. It's going to unlock your gifts, that fear has maybe been guarding for a long time. And of course, if you need a guide to help push you through that, then that's where I would say go look at the one-on-one coaching. We opened a few spots, and so if you're having someone in your corner feels like what you need someone to help push you forward faster who's been through what you're going through, then there's a link in the description for that. And then, of course, if you lead a team, run a podcast, host any sort of event where you gather people and you're like, man, this message would be great for someone like them, or a message like this, then I'd love to chat about how we can bring this sort of a thing to your community in real and down-to-earth ways. So once again, that link will be down in the description as well. And then, of course, if this video hit home to you in any sort of way, then, like it, leave your comments, like what landed for you. And of course, please subscribe, ring that bell for notifications so you don't miss out on what's next. So, like, last bit, like, just remember, your fear isn't there to stop you from living. It's just there to keep you safe. But there's a huge difference between staying safe and truly living. And when you learn to work with fear instead of against it, like when you use it as fuel instead of your finishing line, that's when you stop just surviving and you start thriving. The flow you're craving, it's not on the other side of fearlessness. It's on the other side of just moving forward, even when your voice is shaky, even when your heart is pounding. Every single time that you choose growth over comfort, action over hiding, purpose over playing it safe and small, like, you're not just changing your life, you're expanding what's possible. The world's waiting for you to step into who it is that you're meant to be so you can make the impact that only you were born to make. And so with that, I'll just say thank you so much for taking the time and hanging out with me today, watching this video. Hopefully we'll catch you in the next one. Hopefully we'll keep unlocking these things for you. So we'll catch you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.